If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to Why Write. Hi, welcome back to Why Write. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and thank you so much for tuning in for another episode that will help you to become a writer that is in you, because we're going to talk to writers about their writing process. And today I have a special guest that is from Iowa. All of a sudden I was
like, Salt Lake City, Utah. You're so close.
I knew it was a four-letter word.
This is a great way to think about it.
This is Wendy Bird. And of course, thanks to the technology that Zoom has provided and the pandemic has introduced, we can bring us together closer in this Zoom world and bring Wendy Bird onto the show to share her journey. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Wendy before we start our conversation that you can listen to. But Wendy is a children's author. She has written a children's book. She also has a journal also that she has written. So the fact that she is a children's author is a different topic that we haven't talked about, because she's doing something where you need illustrations and she's marketing to a completely different audience that, we have been talking to. So we're going to learn about how she came about writing this children's book and where that led her. Because now, after doing this, she not only is an author, but she also is a keynote speaker, and she's spoken in over 28 countries. And in I don't know how many states in America?
We are too short from all 50 states.
Wow, so. 48 states. Yeah. So, she's gone on these speaking engagements and been writing these keynote speeches. And she is also the founder and the owner of Pearls with a Purpose. And it's a beautiful jewelry business that she has. And we're going to talk to her about why that is so precious to her as being an advocate for sex trafficking. So I want to welcome Wendy to the show and say thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Angela. I'm so grateful to be here. I just love opportunities like this to
and we never know where our opportunities are going to come from. And I approached your booth at a fair one time and saw these beautiful pearls. And I'm always buying my daughter's pearls. My first daughter, her name's Maggie, which means pearl. So it's very special to me. And I all of a sudden I look over and I see this children's book called The Purple Dress. And yes, please hold it up. Look at how beautiful this is. It's two girls joining hands, and they're both wearing the same purple dress. And they're on two separate continents. I mean, it really takes place on two separate continents. It's a wonderful story. And I know that the story itself shows that all walks of life can make a difference. So can you tell our audience how you came up with this idea to write The Purple Dress, and then what the process was like?
Well, it was actually kind of an easy thing to come up with. The speaking that I've done, I've been doing that since 2004 and 5. And this event took place 2007. And so it became part of the keynote speaking. And every time the story would be shared, I would have people come up and say, oh my gosh, that story about your daughter and the dress she donated, is that a book? Because I would love to read that to my kids. And I was like, you're right, I should write that as a book. But as a founder of a nonprofit working internationally and doing all this training overseas, that bandwidth to be able to focus on the book didn't come about until 2020. And so we sat to write the book. The story was already written because it is a true story that had happened to my daughter. She was not a bridesmaid, a flower girl in her cousin's wedding, had this beautiful purple dress that she wore and loved this dress because she was 6 years old. And what do 6-year-old girls love? It's either Legos or dresses, right? Barbies or Tonka toys. And she was all girl and just loved this dress. And but she outgrew it, because that's what our kids do as they grow up.
Yeah.
And so running this nonprofit, I said, let's donate that. Oh no, it's my favorite dress. I don't want to donate my dress. Come on, Jerica, you can donate your dress. Look at all these other dresses you have. And of course, the purple one was her favorite one, and she didn't want to, but we did. And so we illustrated this, for like little girls. But the beauty of it is that, I'll just tell you, so 2 years after Giorg had donated the dress, my older daughter and I were in the Philippines in a village called Legazpi City. And we hadn't been there before. And we saw a little girl going across the street, or the dirt road, I should say. And as she passed, my older daughter grabbed my arm and said, "Mom, that's Jerica's purple dress." And I said, "No, that shipped, 2 years ago. I have no idea what country it's in or where it is. Mom, that's her dress." And so we ran after the girl. And, "Hey, what's your name?" "Grace." "Where did you get such a pretty dress?" "Oh, an angel from America sent this to my village, and my family was chosen to pick out items we needed. And I'd always wanted a dress to wear." And Grace was 12, and Grace had never owned a dress. And so on this new rewrite that we just finished and sent to print, we actually share the true story. We show all the pictures of Grace and her family and going out to her house and where she lives and her siblings, because her takeaway was, when I outgrow this, I'll be able to give it to my little sister and she'll have her first dress. And so it's just that mindset, right? At the age of 12, she's already thinking ahead to, how could I help somebody? Because I know how I felt when I got to wear my first dress. And anyway, so we do the true story at the very end so people can really have that connection. And then the real story based throughout is just more helping kids to understand, here's how kids in Philippines live. They dream about having a dress. And maybe you've got so many dresses or so much food in your kitchen, or, something that you're like, I don't really care. But why don't we care? Like, let's think about where we get our products. It's a lot of why Pearls with Purpose is set up the way it is. Do we care about where we get our jewelry? Because all the jewelry we sell is handmade by women rescued from human trafficking or abusive situations or alcoholism or just high dysfunction in these developing countries.
Did your nonprofit begin? When did it begin?
In 2002.
Okay.
And so Jerica donated the dress in 2006.
Okay.
And then we were over in that country in 2008. And at that time we were in 4 countries. So the box honestly could have gone anywhere. It just could have gone anywhere.
What a serendipitous moment. That's
right
word for me lately.
To be able to see, and for me, I've got 5 kids. They are currently 25 to 33. But back then, I'm running this nonprofit. I'm trying to teach my kids these principles of, you live the way 2/3 of the world is never even going to know throughout their lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to fly on an airplane and there's 2/3 of the world who are going to stare at the sky and dream about it and wish they could go, but they're never going to have the money to afford that plane ticket. Yeah. And so I really tried to instill in my kids that greater understanding that the world isn't this or this, it's this. And we have to be mindful of all the thises that exist, all the various perspectives.
It's so wonderful. I know, like, for myself, like, having 2 daughters, when they're little and they're outgrowing their clothes so fast, I had nieces and nephews and neighbors and friends who are having children. You pass on the clothes because, they're not used that much. And even when we still, to this day, and my daughter's 14 and 21, we see them starting to pass clothes on, and we'll look and go, that was my shirt, and it makes you feel good that it's still got this, like, usage, which is great. And, just to be able to help people in your backyard. And I do the same thing with my children, is trying to teach them things. And, we volunteer at an outreach center, and there's been times where people have donated a zillion coats, and we see the people who are taking the coats. And, a lot of them are, living on the streets. And I remember the first time when my daughter was probably maybe 8 years old, we were in the car, and she was like, "Mom, that's the guy we gave the coat to, and he's wearing it."
Oh, that's
and
so
and it was like, she saw that, he really did need it. He's really using it, so,
right.
And here, when your daughter sees this dress in another country, never mind down the street, that's just amazing.
Yeah. That perspective really changes. It helps you as a consumer, to be more socially minded and to really evaluate, number 1, what am I buying? Number 2, why am I buying? And number 3, when you get to that number 3, who made this so that I could buy it? That's when you're really starting to put that thought process into consumerism, because
Yeah.
consumerism isn't bad. You
No,
know,
no.
if you are fortunate enough to live in that 1/3 of the world's population that has discretionary income, that could go through, you know, a coffee drive-through every morning and get a $6 cup of coffee instead of having to spend 10 cents and do the ground version or whatever. You know, when you are aware of, honestly, it's the privilege that, you know, that you have by living in that 1/3 percent, it's humbling to be able to expand your own knowledge, understanding, and compassion and grace to the individuals who really won't ever know it. You know, they
Yeah.
just won't. And so the truth of the statistic of, you know, could you live on $1 a day? You know, because that's what 2/3 of the world has to do. Like, you know, that's what we need to be kind of equating our income and our flow and our consumerism too. Like, does this
So your
help?
nonprofit, which is called Pearls with a Purpose.
Girls with Purpose. And so so the nonprofit on its own does micro enterprise training, as well as called, which is basically a mini business. We work in Philippines, India, Cambodia, Peru, Dominican Republic, and Kenya. And what we do is we go in country, we have a 12-week module, and it teaches individuals how to own a business within their country. So like, I'm not the employer of these women. I just simply layered import with training. And so we do this teaching probably back in 2007. I saw quite vividly, they don't have a way to move their products. And so that's when I was like, what if I bring the products into America and I'll just sell them for them, and then 64% will go back to fund the nonprofit. So the nonprofit's self-reliant, the training and everything is along the lines of self-reliance. And then individuals who shop from us, they can know, wow, like, I am getting this beautiful pearl necklace, and 64%, you know, 64 cents of every dollar is going into a 501c3 and helping women in developing countries. And that's huge. Not very many nonprofits can say that they do that.
That's beautiful that you've been gifted with not only the passion to do it, but the talent to do it. You know,
it's a learning curve. There
are
are
a lot of people have the passion to help someone, but to actually have that active force to drive, that's wonderful. Because, you know, even for me, when I try to, you know, say, okay, I'm going to start this project, you know, I'm going to do a good segue here, saying I can get stuck. And I know you and your husband developed this, you know, the program, which is Unstick the Stuck. Can you tell us about how you and your husband help people to unstick the stuck, and how, you know, you, and I didn't say this in the introduction, but she is also a coach and a teacher, and she helps, I believe, is it all people or just women? I don't know.
We have trained quite a few men, but we work with all walks of life.
I mean, when you go to her website, everyone's got to go check out her website. But like, you know, it says that, you know, not only do they unstick the stuck, and we're going to find out about that in a minute, I promise, but they help people with getting energy and productivity and clarity and performance. And, you know, we all need those things and we all have them, but there's days and times in our day where, you know, exhaustion comes upon us or procrastination comes upon us. So Wendy, please tell us, give us some secret tips.
So this actually came about again in Philippines. We started there, right, in 2002. And so I was back there in 2016, and all these young adults were coming up and saying, oh my gosh, you know, here I'm in school and I'm doing this, and I'm just like, I don't remember their name. And, you know, I am definitely aging through all of this. And so I was like, remind me your name. And it's like, oh, you didn't train me. You trained my mom. And because of that, I got to go to college. Or because of that, I married this guy instead of this guy. You know, oh, this is Nana. And my mom, you trained her. And now I'm married. I have a baby and I live in a house. We're not in the squatters anymore. And my brain was just blown away because we were seeing that generation.
Yeah, what a ripple effect.
Yeah. And so as I was there, you know, to do training, probably 7, 8 women. And at that point we had 123 women in this area. And I had 7 or 8 of them. They just kind of pull me aside because they're very shy to make an ask. And they were just all, Wendy, so I have my house, you know, oh, my kids, they did school. Okay, so my daughter is married, my son, he's married. What do I do now? And it was like, what is next? And if you're familiar with Maslow's, you know, hierarchy of needs, you have that foundation, right? Clothing, food, shelter. Like every human needs to know that that is secure, that that is in place. And then that next level is, you know, education, learning. And then the next level is contribution to others. And then that final pinnacle at the top of the pyramid is self-actualization. It's, you know, why you're here and how you can help other people. And that was what they were asking me. They're like, okay, this is done. And I've had all this learning, but I don't know how to navigate these next two levels. And I was like, and I don't know how to help you. I didn't. And I was like, I'm stuck. Like I could do the business training, I could do jewelry making, I could do knotting and wire wrapping, I could do it all day long, but ask me to help you know how to grow. That's a whole different arena. And I was like, wow, I have coasted. Like I knew it. Like in that moment, in that conversation, it was like, Wendy, you're stuck. How are you going to get unstuck? And so I got home from that trip. I was babysitting my grandkids and it's like 11:30 at night. And I'm telling you, so I've been hit by a car 3 times now by people that ran red lights. I've had 54 surgeries. I am half titanium. And I have done
I'm joining you.
I know 9 years of full-time PT, 9 years as a full-time job, just trying to get my body to work again. And so I have a lot of grit, I have a lot of mortality motivation, and I have a lot of just perseverance. And so I'm driving home from my grandkids. I'd had hip surgery and I was driving with my opposite foot and I got pulled over for a speeding ticket. And it's 11:30 at night. I'm tired, I'm cross, I'm in pain. And the police officer's like, well, I have you going 62 and a 55. And I'm like, you're not really going to give me a ticket. And he did. And I remember just the anger, you know, it just surfaces because you're like, you know what? You did not need to do that. And so I like crank on the radio and I hear this, are you lacking motivation? Do you feel like you're struggling in life? And I'm like, yes, that is me right now. And it was get my free book, The Motivation Manifesto by Brendan Burchard, only pay shipping and handling. I like picked up the phone right then. I'm driving in my truck. I called the number. I ordered the book. I get home and I was just like, I've never done that before. Like, what? Did I just give some company my credit card number? Like, is this the dumbest thing I ever did? And then, you know, 5 days later, I get this book. I poured into it. And then I Googled this guy. And then I see that he has, you know, coaching and training and high performance development. And my eyes, because it was exactly what these women had been asking me about 3 weeks earlier. Exactly. It was, how do you harness your energy? How do you live purposefully? And, you know, at that point, for over a decade and a half, I'd been told by everybody, you're the most purpose-driven humanitarian person we know. You're like a Mother Teresa, but a Mother Wendy, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like feeling like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But I was exhausted. I would slip in the energy drinks. My body was definitely falling apart. I mean, not on a fault of my own, but because of these accidents. And so I'm just like, is there really a different level even for me? And when we can ask ourselves that question and then honestly say, I'm like at a 3 and I really want to be at a 10. How do I get there? How do I get to even 3.5 some days? And we can honestly say, I'm willing. Like, I'm willing to drink the water you've poured for me. Game changer. And so I became a CHPC. It's a certified high performance coach. I went through anything and everything. I drank the water, you know, that Brendan was pouring. And I developed myself. And what happened is all my keynote speeches pivoted. And so I never did marketing to coach people. But when I would deliver a keynote, I would have people come up and say, that's different. Yeah. Like, what do you know that I don't know? Wow, that was like you had a standing ovation. Like, that was mesmerizing. Like, how do you do that? And I'm just like,
I'm ready to give you a standing ovation right now. I'm mesmerized.
Oh my God.
I'm sure my audience is, because it's like, wow, like, yes, amen, sister. You know, it's like, well, yeah, I get that feeling when you're just overwhelmed and exhausted. And, you know, I think there's a lot of women, I'm going to use, you know, the phrase women, but I mean, people in general, especially when the children leave the nest, where it's all of
Oh,
a
yeah.
sudden what you're doing that was such the priority and the focus of your life now becomes like, now what do I do?
Now
You
what?
know, am I
That
just
was these women in the Philippines.
yeah,
Like,
and
now
it's like,
what?
what's next for me? Because, I feel this way even about myself. And, we briefly talked about this before the show. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, because, you know that you have a high potential and
Yeah.
you want to help people, but it's the how. And, for me, writing books, if they entertain or educate, that's great. But at the same time, you know, you want to reach out to someone like you. I mean, what you're saying is exactly the motivation that people need. And here I thought we were just going to be talking about children's books when we first started, because I was like, oh my God, I love your children's book. I love the story behind it. And I want to circle back to that for a minute, because I want to ask you a little bit about when you wrote your children's book, how did you get the illustrations?
That's a hard one. I'm really glad you asked. It doesn't come easy. We actually probably lost more money than we should have by not doing due diligence, or by having artists say, "Oh, I want this. I'll do this. Here's what I'll do for you. Oh, but I need to pay rent. Could you prepay me half in advance?" And we'd be like, in good faith, "Yes, we will," because that's who we are, right? And then we'd get 3 drawings and then we'd never hear from them again. And it's like, oh my gosh. So we started writing The Purple Dress in 2010 and went through 3 artists and myriads of issues and problems and questions, around them. And then I went on a hike. I belong to a hiking group, and we were out hiking. There was a girl on the group. Her name's Tiffany. And Tiffany and I kind of were at the same pace. So we're talking, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I've heard amazing things about you. You run this nonprofit." And I said, "Yeah, but now it's COVID. We're like working on writing a book." And I said, "I just need an illustrator." And she's like, "Oh, well, I have an illustrator." And I was like, "There's no way." And she goes, "Yeah, but I don't know if you want to use her because she's in the Philippines." And I'm like, and that's it. Like, that was the why, because this story takes place in the Philippines, right? And I was like, that's exactly who I would love to use. And so, working with her, we connected with these girls, and they had to drop out of college because of COVID. And so they got our contract, and so our work hour for continuing with the book was 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. because we were on Philippine time zone. And so there you go, right? That's another, like, okay, am I going to let this derail me, or am I just going to readjust my life so that I can make this happen? Because my why, my need to get this book written, is so dialed in for me. And so we had a lot of just midnight mornings, is what we call them, and we did it, and it came together perfectly. So that was how it ended for us. But you can definitely go into a lot of losses and a lot of
Yes, yes. Yes, and I haven't shared this with my audience, but I have a children's book coming out this fall, and
nice.
I'm gonna say, like, a similar story that, this is a story my daughter wrote, and it's, a day at the park that she had, and we wrote it down. She drew some illustrations, and she was like, "Mom, I want to make it into a book," because of course I've set the example of writing books, so she was kind of following that path. And we happened to go to the beach, and she met a little girl and was playing with a little girl on the beach, and she talked to the mom. The mom asked her, about her family. She said, "Oh, my mom writes books." And she goes, "I wrote a book." She goes, "I want to get it published." So she told her all about the book. And her mother approached me later and said, "If you're looking for an illustrator, that's what my husband does. He's an illustrator for DC Comics." And I was like, "Can
Oh
he
my
do
goodness.
mine?" So I'm going to give a sneak peek to my audience on the book, because I do have
Look
a little
at
sample.
that. Oh my
But,
gosh, that's
it's like the fact that, I know how hard it is to find an illustrator. So it's
right,
like, how did you find it? Especially if you're not an artist yourself. And,
right.
writing a book, whether it's, a children's book, a regular book, and I had it by me, but I put it in the other
Oh,
room right
the
now.
planner
Oh
thing.
yes, she has this planner, and I love
Yeah.
this planner. It's like, can plan your days and really get everything in your mind on paper, so you see it, and it's so
It's
beautifully
conscious
done.
building,
Yeah, conscious
it's
building.
supposed to
And
raise your consciousness.
yeah, the fact that you were able to publish these books and, sell them is, a wonderful thing, to get them into the hands of the people that, will be influenced by them, whether they're raising their own consciousness or raising the consciousness of the child, because with the children's book,
Right.
it certainly does that.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
just reading the story is a sweet story, but having that moral and the lesson behind it. And then now with your new the new book, the new version coming out, having that real story in there. I mean, you're really getting that whole worldwide, universal angelic connection, which I love always seeing those angelic connections, because I do know that, they're there. So it's just really great.
So true.
I mean, I could talk to you for hours. There's so much to talk about. I want my audience for sure to find out where they can buy your books, where they can support your business, Pearls with a Purpose. And, also, I'd love to have you back on to talk about your keynote speaking events, because I
feel like we need to do a part 2.
Yeah, we're going to do a part 2, because I know that I have writers out there who are speakers. And I think
nice.
it'd be helpful to find out like how you go about, writing a keynote speech, and then how you go about booking them, and, even pricing them, because that's a whole nother entity. I have friends who do it, and we're always talking like, what do you charge? What do you charge? And, it's like, we want to do it out of the kindness of our heart. Yet there are expenses that are our time and our travel that, you have to take into consideration, and you're sharing. When you share part of yourself, that's valuable. So, you've been successful with this. So I really want a part 2 with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But, if you can just share, and I'm going to put the links below on the podcast so people can click right on them, and we'll put it up on the screen, but share where they can find more information about you and the books and your business, your nonprofit.
So all of our stuff is branded under Pearls with Purpose. I do have a website for Coach Wendy Bird, which is where we tried to put all the speaking and the coaching information and things like that. We have speaker sheets that you can download, which will, give you topics and stuff. And we negotiate the prices with each individual, because I'm a firm believer in you need to understand the audience before you just walk on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And so I do quite a bit of due diligence prior to any speaking engagement to, number one, see if it's even a good fit. Number two, to see what their audience is going to need to hear from me.
Yeah.
Because I've got 20 years of stories that are life-changing. I mean, they're truly life-changing, and it could resonate with some audiences, and it may not resonate with others. If they're just like, I have an aversion to leprosy afflicted individuals, I don't want to hear anything about it. Or I can't believe you were in 3 car wrecks. Please make sure you show.
Yeah, you don't want to talk. You don't want to give a talk to someone that's going to be a big trigger,
Right. Yeah. So you have
sex trafficking and
the sex trafficking is a whole other beast. And so you have to be careful on those. We can't show the pictures of the girls rescued. And so there's all kinds of things that go into.
No, you're right there. I like that you have to do your due diligence in researching your audience, not just in the size of the audience, but what the audience is, who you're catering the talk to. And I know you have like a good 6, 7, 8 different talks that you give. So it is a matter of someone going to your website and picking that out. And it's wendybird.com.
Coach Wendy Bird.
CoachWendyBird.com.
And then Pearls with Purpose.
And I like it. It's like bird, like talking bird, and very sweet.
Yeah.
Very sweet. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. It was so great to be here. I'm so excited for your upcoming book. I think that's really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah. My why behind it originally was just to be able to make it for my daughter, so she could do it now. I mean, she wrote it when she was 7, now she's 14. So, she's kind of like
actually almost the same timeline. Yeah. Anytime we go to events, people are always asking Jerica to sign the book. And I'm like, she didn't even write it. She didn't do those 2 a.m. mornings. And it's like, but she's the star.
Yes, it is. And my daughter's name, she's one of the stars in the book. So her, my niece, and my nephew, we use their names and use them.
You'll be amazed how much she's asked to sign it.
It's just fun. I mean, now my why ended up becoming because I wanted to learn how to do it. How to actually put together a children's book. Like, how do you do that? Because it's so different than writing a novel when you're putting photos in and things like that. So, again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I want to thank Studio 954, and I want to thank my audience for taking the time to let me have this show, because I've said this a million times and I mean it with all my heart. I'm loving doing what I do. I love talking to these writers and learning along with you. And we all have a writer inside of us. And, we want to share our stories, and there's different ways to share a story, whether you want to write a novel or a memoir or a play. You think your life is a movie? Who knows? You might write a children's book. You might just capture some of your recipes and memories to make a scrapbook for your own family. So there's so many ways to share a story. So I'm hoping, and I know that one of the ways that we share here on the show will help you too. So this is the time in my program, Wendy, where I share a prompt with my audience because, you know, our key is to start writing. So
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, pick up your pen. And what you're going to do is when the show is done, you're going to set your timer for about 10 minutes. I'll give you the prompt now and just write for 10 minutes to whatever, you know, comes. And because, you know, Wendy's been on the show today so graciously talking about how, you know, all walks of life can make a difference. So how about we use that as a prompt and think about a way that someone has either helped you along your path in life or a way that you've helped someone. Perhaps you've donated food to your local shelters or clothing. Write a story about the journey that food or that clothing took. And, you know, even if it's, you know, making up in your head, just put it on paper and you're going to be starting to write a story.
Yeah, they have actually documented the power of writing.
The power of writing is huge. So
huge.
Start writing. I will see you on the next episode of yWrite. And please subscribe on the YouTube channel to yWrite and pay attention to my website page at Angela M. Grout, where there'll be more information about a local conference right here in Agawam on November 4th. Bye. Thank you so much.